everybody, Terrence Popp here with another episode from the Lair. Alright, today what we're going to go over here, we're going to go over some repo stories and some process server stories. Now you got to keep in mind, I did a whole lot of process services, probably thousands, and probably, I don't know, I'd say close to 1,000 repos, maybe a little less, over a 4-year period. And, a lot of it was monotony. I'll explain it to you. There's a couple good stories in there. All right, when I got into the repo business, it was a car auction place on Telegraph Road in Detroit. I think it used to go by Midwest Auto. I don't know what it's called today. Back then, they used to do the key code, and used to do hard repos, which is basically put a dent puller in the steering column and the ignition, and you spray it with liquid nitrogen or Freon, and then you just jerk the whole thing out. Of course, it fucks up a bunch of shit, and in some vehicles it's hard to do, but, and that was not a majority of the repos. Usually it was key codes. Because most people don't change the key codes on their car, when you get it from the dealer. You can, there's nothing that stops you from doing that, but that's pretty much the only way you're gonna, change the key codes, other than the dealer fucking up, which did happen from time to time. They're also, back then they did have wreckers on the yards, but you had to radio in and get the wrecker to come out. Nowadays everyone drives around in a wrecker because all the vehicles have all these crazy anti-theft fucking devices, which really weren't that common back in the day. Now the guy I worked for, his name was Larry. I don't remember his last name. He was in his mid-30s at the time. He's probably old as dirt now, but and then it was me, and then he had 2 other guys worked in his crew. Now these 2 other dudes were some unsavory individuals. Pretty much they're just fucking walking criminals, just total douchebags. I didn't like them at all, and they were pretty incompetent, other than the fact they're willing to do unsavory shit in the dark hours of the night and make this guy money. I got most of the key codes because I was white, I could think on my feet, and I was in fucking rocket shape compared to those other 2 douchebags. I could run, I don't know, a 12-minute, 5-second 2-mile, and I could cover 5 miles in 40 minutes or less. And if it came down to it, and I got into open, ground, and I was running, could pretty much outrun, most people walking around the street if they weren't in good shape. If they didn't catch me off the jump, I was gone. Plus I could jump fences, and I knew, like I said, I could think on my feet. I knew how shit worked. And there was quite a few times I had to run my fucking balls off. I'm not gonna lie to you, that did happen. But a couple ones I'm gonna talk to you about tonight are the Detroit cop repo situation. Now, if you guys didn't know this, the Detroit police have historically paid their officers absolute fucking, bottom of the barrel wages. In fact, even today, if you're a cop and you have 2 kids, and, for a family that size, on the income they give you, you're fucking basically working for Detroit and on food stamps. I mean, that's pretty bad. It was even worse back then. And on this particular night, I was dispatched to get this guy's Camaro. And, he knew he was, down on his payments. In fact, you wouldn't even see us until you were 3 payments down. Bottom line. We wouldn't even come out, the bank wouldn't even fuck with us until you went over 3 payments. Then they sent the shop the pink slip on the vehicle with a waiver from the bank authorizing us to repo the vehicle. So, I'm doing the deal. We drive by the residence. We wait till about 11 o'clock. Now typically the SOP back in the day is, if you're going to do a repo inside the city of Detroit, is you call the police, you say, I'm at such and such address, I'm going to repo a vehicle. But every time we did that, especially because he wasn't the first cop we've done this to, so we knew the deal. We knew the MO, what was going on. We would call it in, You call dispatch, and they'd be like, "Isn't that Johnny's car? Oh, let's call Johnny." And they call Johnny and say, "Hey, there's repo men outside." And then he like jumps in the car and takes off, and we're not gonna get into some kind of high-speed pursuit over a repo because we know where the guy lives. And we would do skip traces. If he had relatives in the area, if the car was never at the house, we'd check the relatives' places. I mean, it's not rocket science. So on this particular night, we didn't call it in because we'd been burned on this a few times. But he had another car parked right behind it. We're repo men. Getting into vehicles is our stock and trade. So literally, technically this is breaking and entering, and if we got rolled up by the cops, I'm sure they would have thumped on us a little bit. But we opened up the car door that was in the driveway and put it in neutral, and we rolled the car into the street and then pushed it like it was parked, and then shut the door and let it be. Okay, of course we relocked it, so we wear gloves and stuff, because our backstory was like, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about. That car was in the street. So it's, I know he's a cop. Sure, they would fuck us up. They would charge us some bullshit, but we are licensed repo men, and he's down on his payments, and, it wouldn't go anywhere. And most of the times, they wouldn't even fuck with it. They'd just say, "Hey, officer such and such, pay your fucking bills. This is insane." So we roll the car in the street, we do our deal. Now, I'm the key code guy, so I have the key. And I remember I walk up there, and just to make sure I'm not going to get fucking shot, like we always look in a couple windows to make sure a guy's not setting up on us or retrieving a shotgun or a gun or something. Because if that's happening, we usually just bail, because getting shot in the driveway in a vehicle is not worth your life. It's not worth the injury. And contrary to popular belief, modern motor vehicles have zero cover. Modern rounds zip right through those cars like they're made of butter. And the only thing that actually stops the bullets is the engine block and maybe one of the axles, if you're lucky to get that low to the ground. So I remember I opened the door, and we had this, it was a velvet bag with duct tape around the edges. We changed the tape every time. So as soon as we open the door, we put it on the dome light, boom, turns out to light instantly. So, because I have a cop car, and that option is basically disabled, in the cars, because when you open the door, the dome light comes on, which makes you a perfect target. So I opened the door, the light went on for maybe just a fraction of a second, because I knew where the fucking light was, because I rehearsed a lot of the shit beforehand. The two jokers didn't, and they paid for it down the road. Because whenever you're gonna do fucking direct action shit, the military always taught me rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. Because when you get on the objective and you don't know what's fucking going on and you don't rehearse it, you're gonna get fucking pinched. So that's what I did. So I put it in neutral, and I have my one leg out the door, and I'm rolling it back, and it's starting to get momentum. I shut the door nice and quiet, and we roll down the street, and I just start the car. Now, that particular car was all tricked out. It was an IROC Z. I believe it had a 350 in it, and it had some kind of modification to the frame, which was done at the dealer, because that fucking car was all nuts and no butts. I mean, it probably had somewhere between 400 and 500 horsepower, and those old IROC Z body frames were very light. I remember I started up, it had glass packs on it, whoa, and I see the light come on in the house, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm out of here. And I must have laid 100 meters worth of fucking smoke on those back tires. I mean, I just couldn't understand why I wasn't going a lot faster, and I didn't check the treads on the back tires because he'd already smoked them up. There wasn't any tread on them, but I managed to get out of there. The guy I was working for, we usually stationed out of his van, and he was following a couple blocks behind me, and then and I don't know what happened, but like literally another car went around him, was coming up on me, and it was a civilian vehicle. It wasn't a cop vehicle, but I wasn't taking any chances. So, I made it onto grass shit, and we had a little bit of cat and mouse going on. And I jumped on, I believe it was 696, worked my way down the Telegraph, and then by the time I got down there, I lost them when I made it back to the repo yard. And the first thing you do when you get to the repo yard is you open all the trunks, the glove boxes, everything. You take every fucking thing out of the vehicle, minus, if it's in there, the dealer book in the glove box. Everything else goes into a bag. All right, and then they put a lock on it. You inventory everything going in there. It takes about 20 minutes. And if the guy could come get his shit if he wants to, a couple times, most of the time they didn't come get it. This car got picked up about 6 days later. The guy paid it off and came and got his car and his shit. He was very unhappy. But there's not much you could do. I mean, you pay your bills or you don't pay your bills. It's just that simple. I mean, that's reality. It wasn't any kind of discrimination because the guy was a black dude, but, I didn't give a fuck. I didn't, the paper doesn't say black dude. It just says fucking, 3 payments in the hole, repossess. That's it. That's what I did. Okay, now when I mentioned earlier about, doing a skip trace on some of these guys, and they would hide the vehicle at relatives and stuff. And we would do that back at the shop most of the time. And because they used to have a computer system that did that thing. Because this is before the internet, where anyone now with a credit card can pretty much pull up anything on anybody if you just have like their first and last name and you know roundabout where they live. So they would do a skip trace, and if we went by the residence 3 or 4 times and never saw the vehicle, then we would do the skip trace, and then we'd look around relatives' houses in the Detroit metro area. We wouldn't go too far out of our way, but because it wouldn't make sense for a guy to hide the car 20 miles away if he was driving around or whatever. And a couple times we would find the vehicle parked out in daughter's house, son's house, his parents' house, and we would just fucking take the vehicle there. Fuck them. Pay your fucking bills. Again, we box up all the shit, you inventory it, you put it up on the rack, and then I think they would stay up there for 45 days, and then every once in a while after, it would come off after 45 days, and they would set it aside for like another 30 days, and after 30 days they would cut the seal on it, dump it, and then donate most of it to like charity, or we rat fuck it if there's anything good in there, which there rarely was. Let's see another one. All right. Now normally I didn't take the job very serious. I didn't. It was never. I mean, I took it serious, but I didn't make it personal. Because I had a lot of guys that would get confrontational, get in your face, and say horrendous fucking shit to you. And I would just say, look, man, I'm just the guy. If I'm at your doorstep, it's not me that came here. It's you. 9 times out of 10, this is your mistake. It's not the bank's. I'm not going to call the bank. I'm just here with the vehicle. And they would get stupid. And I'll tell you a couple stories, either this one or the next one, about people pulling guns and shit. But that did happen a few times. But this particular guy, we rolled his house, and we didn't find the vehicle, and so we staked it out, and I was watching it. And about 4 in the morning, the guy rolls up on his house. Apparently he was staying at a girlfriend's house. We can't find that shit back. You can't skip chase a girlfriend. Unless you follow him there, and which didn't take place. So we're going to take the car, and we go up, and the key code doesn't match. He fucking changed the ignition. So, oh fuck, I don't have the fucking key. I don't have my fucking tools to do a hard pull. So, we jump on the radio, we call the wrecker to come and get the fucking vehicle. And, this was, what city was this in? I think it was Clarkston. Yeah, it's pretty far out there. It's one of the far suburbs from Detroit. It's like a good 40 minutes, from Detroit Metro, or from downtown Detroit. It's like 30 minutes from the closest suburbs. So by the time the truck gets there, the guy he basically goes in, gets a shower, comes out dressed, gets in the car, and takes off because he works at Tancom, which is in Warren. So we follow him there, and he knows we're following him. We're playing the fucking game. We weren't doing a high-speed chase. We're following at a distance. And he rolls in the front gate, which they have security as the gate and everything. And we tell the security guards, like, we're here to repo that guy's vehicle. And I think he was 6 months in the hole. He didn't pay his fucking shit. And they're like, they basically tell us to pound sand. This is a secured area. We can't come in there, blah, blah, blah. So we're like, okay. So the dude sees us, and from the parking lot, he's like flipping us off, yelling fucking shit, being a royal fucking dick about the whole thing. And I'm like, okay. And I don't know why on this particular day, that guy doing that kind of shit rubbed me the wrong way. You make things personal. I'm not the guy you want to do that with, because, I'm an evil genius. I'm motivated. And have a hell of a lot more fight in me than I do money or sense. So there you go. So I knew where this dude lived, and lived in like it was almost it wasn't quite a gated community, but it was pretty ritzy. And back then I drove a 71 Chevy Nova, and for the front bumper I had a railroad tie. And on the front hood was painted his skull. And on the back I had a bumper hitch for, towing shit around, which up until that point I never towed shit. So, the guy had, made his restitution, paid the car, not in full, but, he paid it enough where they took back the repo order on it. But, I'm not that guy. You fucking want to be a dick, that's fine. We can do that. So I went over to his place, and it was about 5 in the morning-ish, 4:30. And I hooked up a chain to his car. It was a Mercedes. And then I took that chain and hooked it up to the bumper hitch in the back. And then I proceeded to drag that motherfucking Mercedes 3/4 of a mile down the fucking road. I had to squeal the tires because I had a 350, 450. It was a 350 with a 350 turbo transmission, 4-bolt main. It had a lot of horsepower. No problem. I dragged that fucking car. The alarm started going off, and it was squirking and squawking as it was going down the pavement. And then I dragged it down the fucking gravel road. And the guy I remember he's standing there in his bathrobe, his flip-flops on, in the middle of the road looking at me. And I'm looking at him, and I unhook the chain, and I flip him off, and I get back in my car, and I leave. I'm sure I fucked that car up all kinds of ways, because dragging a car like that, it was an automatic, around on all 4 wheels, and not giving a fuck, probably not good for the vehicle. I got some more repo stories down the road, and we'll hit those up, but I had to take a break in the filming. It kind of messed up my fucking flow, so I'm going to call it tonight. I'll talk to you guys later. What the fuck is going on? All right, Blake, cut that out. He's got a big-ass dog here, and it's going crazy. I'm going to take a break here, and we're going to continue this up.